All right, let's get our Facebook fans in here. Get the show rolling. Get the wheels spinning. 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is Wednesday morning, the 15th of May. Happy schedule release day, Scott. How are you doing? What's new? Do you got anything fun coming up, man? I feel like, you had that big vacation out there, doing the diving and whatnot. Is there anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
Just baseball. Wood bat this week. So
Ooh.
they start kicking out the wood bats, and I took Sean to the cage yesterday. He swings his wood bat wickedly. So I'm like, ironically enough, his highest OPS bats or one has dropped 10 from 11U when he was just hitting dingers all over the place. But after that, it's probably his wood bat. So wood bat tournament this weekend. Looking forward to that. Down in Atlanta at a new field. So that's it's baseball season, man.
That's great. Unfortunately, my baseball is my Cardinals are not very good, but you know what? We had a really good run there, and I've been enjoying the Mariners as well. Have you seen what the Mariners are doing? They really lean into the absurdity. I don't know if it's the Pacific Northwestness in them, but they've been shooting hot dogs from the roof of the stadium with parachutes while playing Heaven is a Place on Earth as the hot dogs rain down with parachutes into the stands. Have you seen this?
I have not seen it.
Oh, it's the best.
But I've hypothesized in my early 20s, if you want to see a bunch of millionaires / grown people absolutely lose their frickin' minds, fire a $2 t-shirt at them and watch them fight over it like they're clawing for life. So
yeah, I always think
I can picture what the scenes are like as people want to win. They want to win free stuff. They want to win. I'm a winner.
And
they'll trample little children to get to those things.
That's true. I mean, the t-shirt cannon happens so fast where it's like the parachute one. It's the anticipation of just dangling, coming down. It's like, oh man, just so exciting, so fun, and crazy stuff out here in the Pacific Northwest. And speaking of the Pacific Northwest, Scott, we have a potential leak. Again, I do believe it. You don't have to believe it. And if you want to wait until it's actually confirmed, that's fine. But week 1, Denver making out a second trip in 3 seasons, week 1 matchup in Seattle. I think Ben Albright posted that. There's been other leaks out there, but Denver not getting that anticipated, speculated potential matchup of a Russell Wilson homecoming to Denver with the Steelers, but rather the last Russell Wilson homecoming is a repeat here where Denver's coming out to Seattle. So if anybody's coming out here, if that ends up being the game, let me know. Maybe I'll get a chance to say hello. I do have the baby at home, and I'll be back at work then. So who knows what the world looks like at that point for me? But
Nik will have the Bjorn, the baby Bjorn, walking around, shaking hands and kissing babies.
I mean, I wear that thing hours on the day, Scott. Right now, I'm walking 3 to 4 miles a day, if not more, and a lot of it's with the baby in my very hilly neighborhood. Before I went on leave, I was telling my wife I really wanted a weight vest, just to maximize the walks, especially for all the uphill stuff. She's like, you got a growing weight vest right there. It's like, not always the most evenly distributed. And that one sometimes stinks and jostles around and is mad at me. But we're making the most of it.
We're back on the poopy talk already. I see.
I mean, you got kids. What can you do? And let's say, speaking of poopy talk, let's see what's going on in the comment section. No, just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Jeremy Sean, good to see you in here. Says, morning, boys. Feels good to have optimism back in Broncos country. By the way, I thought Troy Franklin hadn't signed yet. I thought he had signed. I thought I read that Jonah Ellis was the final signing. Maybe it was the second to final signing. We're still waiting on Troy Franklin. If that's the case, I apologize for that. But I thought I read that it was the capstone signing for the draft class. So
they get in there and work anyway. They've got like insurance. So I'm more concerned. I'm not too concerned in May if they've signed or not. Now, what's interesting is watching the Marvin Harrison Jr. saga where he hasn't signed his licensing deal. So they can't put him in Madden or sell his jersey yet. I don't know if that's changed in the last couple of weeks, but that's different.
Yeah. And I see that Troy Franklin actually has not signed yet. Maybe I got the okay, yep, I see where I pulled it now. They used the language penultimate signing of the draft class in the article. So the second to last. So that's using big words this morning before my coffee kicks since I've been up since 4:20.
You're on the crash at this point.
I need more coffee. It's Little guy, I have the alarm set for 4:30 so I can get him back down before starting down here because I don't want to leave him to my wife when he's like ticked off. But this morning he woke me up at 4:15, 4:20. So we're here, we're alive, we're hanging out, and I apologize for that one in the comment. But Jonah Ellis, we'll talk about Ellis today, waiting for Franklin to sign as well. But first, we got the Boogmeister coming in here, kicking us off with the super chats, making it worth it for me to wake up at 4:20 a.m. I'll wake up at 4:20 every day for money. Says, good morning, big dogs. What do you guys think about our defensive outlook? And who is your guest to start opposite Patrick Surtain II? Talked about it last night a little bit on building the Broncos. Scott, I think that this Broncos defensive depth chart is probably one of the worst 5 to 8 defenses in football. I do think that the defensive line will be better than last year, but I think the losing Simmons and Jewell is really going to mess with the integrity of the defense. And also last year, I think because it happened second. So last year we had the Broncos defense was on a roller coaster, right? The first 5 games, worst start to a season by DVOA in NFL history, like dating back to the 60s. They were that bad. 70-point game will do that, but they were terrible against the Commanders, against the Bears. I mean, they made Justin Fields look like a Hall of Famer out there. They were terrible. And then you had that crazy streak week 5 through 11, was it, where you're playing a lot of backup quarterbacks. You have a crazy run on fumble recoveries that is just like we'd never seen that since I think it was 1991. And then you see Denver normalize in the back half of the season and they play bottom 10 defense level down the stretch. I think that's probably about where you're going to be again. You added to the offense. I think you stepped back on the defense overall, and I'm expecting.
How'd you add to the offense?
What was that?
How did you add to the offense?
Competency at quarterback to the system, being able to be on time and take away the negative plays. That was something that drove us nuts with that. I also think that Williams, a year further removed, is going to be a big difference because the running game is super important. In theory, you have Dulcich coming back as well, which should add a different type of weapon. But I really do think it's Sean Payton actually having a quarterback that he wants to have out there makes a big difference.
I just think a rookie quarterback stepping in immediately being better than Russell Wilson is something that we're taking as
an assumption.
An assumption that I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah, that's fair.
Again, and even if you just look at the overall numbers, if Bo Nix puts up identical numbers, just stats based, not the eye test, identical numbers to Russell Wilson, he's in the Rookie of the Year discussion, and you're thrilled. So I don't think replicating 26-9, I think it was, in 15 games, we'll call it 30 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. I don't think that's going to be just as automatic as we're making it seem because Sean Payton got his guy. It's funny. Depending on who you ask, we could either be really Debbie Downers or we could be a little bit more optimistic because for me, it's the offense. I look at the offense and, okay, is Javonte Williams take the step up? Let me answer Boogmeister's question here real quick. I think it's going to be Levi Wallace to start.
Yes.
I think he's going to be I thought he was brought in as a steady veteran, a little bit more physical presence than Fabian Moreau. I think that's an upgrade that will make the defense better there. Fabian played okay. You know, as down as I was on him as the signing, he played fine. He was adequate for what he was asked to do. But I think it's going to be Levi Wallace, Boogmeister. Appreciate this super. But if you start looking at, and we've probably done position grades on this, or if we haven't, we will. But I look at the wide receivers. You got Courtland Sutton and question marks at tight end. Do I have anybody that I trust throwing the ball to at tight end? No, I don't. Running backs, I got a room full of 2s right now, maybe 2.5. Samaje Perine is okay. You know, and Estime is a 4.7 bruiser, but will he play? We don't know. McMillan might not even be on the team, and Javonte Williams isn't back 100% from his knee injury. I mentioned the wide receivers, Courtland Sutton in question mark. Mike McGlinchey was not good last year at right tackle. Ben Powers was fair, but he wasn't good. And now you're replacing your center. And I got a rookie quarterback. The offense scares the hell out of me, dude. It really does.
It's a variable season for sure. Rookie center, or essentially rookie center, probably. I mean, we don't know that position, that exchange. I just think the floor is raised still. Overall, you got more running back options when the running game wasn't great last year. And having a quarterback who's not going to have, you're not going to have the fourth quarter, third down, fourth down, crazy explosives, broken play stuff, I believe, to the same level Russell Wilson. I mean, that was the offense last year. That played at Courtland Sutton last year against Buffalo is still one of the most improbable I've ever seen. But I think that, getting rid of the sacks, the negative plays, staying on time, and having somebody that Sean Payton wants and tied his wagon to now also, I mean, he has to make it work with Bo Nix, unless you find yourself a Brock Purdy and get lucky there. But that is we'll see. I mean, both sides questionable, but I don't know, man. The sample, what do we have? The sample size last year when you lost Simmons and Jewell was a bunch of guys trying to tackle greased up deaf guy out there, Family Guy reference, with yakety sacks playing in the background. And
I think I can point, again, you might want to talk about the losses though. Justin Simmons and Josie Jewell. Okay, you lost there, but I can point to several upgrades on the defense. Where John Franklin Myers is a big upgrade on the defense. There's one. Levi Wallace is an upgrade. If you look at PFF, Brandon Jones was an upgrade. Now you're looking at, second year in the system. And part of it might be that I don't have enough experience with Vance Joseph to say, yeah, Scott, it doesn't matter who they got. They're going to suck, which is some of the feelings I get from Broncos country. That it's like, it doesn't matter who they brought in. Vance Joseph is still there. So I get that, but the bar was set incredibly low last year, but I see upgrades on the defensive side of the ball. I don't necessarily see upgrades on offense that you can just say, yes, Bo Nix is an automatic upgrade over Russell Wilson. No, that's not a fact. Not by any stretch of the imagination is that a fact.
Yep. Only time will tell on that.
You're hoping he is. You're thinking he is. And long term, he certainly will be, considering the money and the investment. But year two, if I've got Bo Nix and $55 million of available salary cap money, hell yeah. But right now, it's either Bo Nix or Russell Wilson. And not that either one is a rookie quarterback is not always a great option anyway. The offense, I don't have high expectations for this offense next year. I think it's going to take some time.
Yep. We will see how it plays out for them for sure. We got a question coming in from GGG saying, Nick, this might be way too early, but what do you think about tight end Ferguson from Oregon? Like Ferguson a lot. He caught my eye a lot watching Oregon last year. I don't know if there was a situation on Oregon's schedule last year where they were not more talented than the team they were playing. I know they lost to Washington twice, but that was the one team. But I mean, Oregon they were able to flex on teams, and then they didn't get matched up with an unbelievable opponent. I don't think they played anybody overwhelming week 1 or 2 either that I can recall. So Ferguson really stood out. Where's number 3? A good player. I mean, next year's tight end class looks a lot better than this past season's. Outside of Brock Bowers, number 1 is going to be Colston Loveland from Michigan. He's prototype. He moves so well. I mean, since a freshman, it's been like, oh, this guy's got something. I also really like Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Luke Lachey from Iowa, who was looking to have a real good season last year before getting hurt in the second week of the season, injuring his ankle gruesomely. But I mean, we know about Iowa tight ends at this point. They get that right. They don't get anything else right on offense, Scott, but they tend to get tight ends right. But I do like Ferguson. If you're talking about like round 3, I think that's probably where you're talking about for him right now. That'd be a good pick. Denver's looking for tight end. Makes a lot of sense.
That was the guy to ask, Triple G. I'm not even going to try and weigh in on that one, except to say thank you for the super chat and the support, and I'm glad Nick is here. Coach Chris and Keith Brugman, I'm going to stack these, y'all, because you've got similar discussions here. He says, good morning. The Sutton fiasco is getting old. I get the NFL is a business, but he hasn't performed at a wide receiver 1 level since he tore his knee. He wants more money, but only produces a wide receiver 2 or 3. We have 15 wide receivers on the roster. It's Denver Broncos for life. And Keith comes in with some stars with a follow-up. How big of a setback for Bo Nix in the offense would it be if Sutton holds out into training camp? Is he still on the trading block? Now, again, I don't know how much more money he wants as opposed to, listen, I just want some, guarantees. His dead cap hit this year is 9.6. I'm not sure what if he's cut, that means he would already get that money, but he doesn't have a whole lot of guaranteed money left because he's gotten the money he has that makes up the dead cap is from a signing bonus. I think if you just guaranteed, and this is how you do contract restructures, he's owed 17 and a half. So he's owed $35 million over the next 2 years of his contract. If you wanted him at 17 and you offered him a 3-year deal and gave him a $17 million signing bonus to lower his cap and guarantee that money, he'd probably take it. I just think he's looking for more of a commitment at this point, knowing that I am one knee injury away from not making another dime. Mm-hmm. That's the situation he's in right now. And that's a scary spot for him to be in. So I don't ever blame these guys with non-guaranteed contracts for trying to get more guaranteed money. So, and it's May. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And I'm trying to pull up right now the top receiver contracts in the NFL right now. I mean, receiver is getting paid crazy, Scott, right now. And you need playmakers. I mean, in an era of NFL football where explosive plays are next to impossible to find, and teams are schematically taking away explosives, you need guys who can go out there and get the ball in the paint. You need scorers. And Sutton has been a scorer. I don't know if he's a great number one. I think he's probably more of a high end number two on a good offense, but he can be a number one as an X functionally. But right now he is paid as the 23rd highest paid wide receiver on the market, $15.2 million per year on his contract. You got guys like Calvin Ridley making $23 million a year. Mike Evans, who's older, 20.5. Keenan Allen, 20.3. Brandon Cooks, 19.9. Deontay Johnson, 18.4. I don't blame Courtland Sutton one bit, especially because there's no guarantees left on his contract to go out there and ask for more money. As you mentioned, he's already gone through the grueling process of a return. He is one injury away from being out of the league as far as what that next contract looks like. So it makes sense for him and his camp to hold out. It's a bummer from a fan Bronco perspective. He signed the contract, right? And Denver has the right to say, no, it can be a game of chicken here all the same. We'll see how it plays out. But I don't fault him one bit for that situation, wanting more money with how the contract is set up here and how the wide receiver market has exploded. I want to give credit to, it was Mile High Report. They had an article yesterday, 2 days ago, talking about just, offseason hypothetical stuff. Would you rather have an elite cornerback or an elite wide receiver? And they came to the conclusion, I'd rather have the elite cornerback in Surtain. And Scott, I mean, I don't know where you sit on that, but I sit, give me the elite wide receiver all day. And the market dictates that as well. I think you get through 14 or 15 wide receivers in their average per year contract before you even get to the cornerbacks. I mean, The league values those guys, the wide receiver playmakers, a lot more too. So I don't blame Sutton. It's I think on average, Scott, right now, wide receiver is for the top guys, it's the third highest paid position in the NFL. And Sutton sitting there at 23rd, I think that's probably about fine value, but with where he's at contract-wise, I understand what he's doing.
He's on the club options right now, Nick. Yep. We talk about it all the time. Look at the guaranteed money. That's how long the contract is, and then it's a club option. Well, he's saying, I don't want it to just be the club option. I want you to commit to me. So when we say more money, I think the money he's on would be okay. I don't think he would look for a giant raise. I don't think he would say, okay, I'm at 17. I want 25. I don't think that's it. I want to make sure I get 17 before I go out there for an optional camp and blow an Achilles. So I just think he's looking for, and God bless him for it, with the non-guaranteed contracts. It's the only freaking sport there is that does it like this. This is the one that's the most dangerous. And it's the only time you ever see holdouts is the NFL. NBA, Major League Baseball, when those guys sign their contracts, they are signed and they show up because their money is guaranteed. This isn't. Mm-hmm. So I'm with the players on this. The problem is you've got the media who have these long-term relationships and need the access with the teams that carry their water for them. He's got a contract. He should be here. Brother, you just waived 10 guys with contracts. You're not paying them a cent. Yep. So I'm okay with the players in this case when they're on non-guaranteed deals to try and get some guaranteed money when they got the best leverage they have is a good season. And he had a good season last year.
Yeah, he really did. And I mean, now that Wilson is gone, also we will see Russell Wilson. We'll see what his play looks like, because a lot of his explosives, big plays last year were coming down, and just kind of the street ball stuff that you had with Russell Wilson when things weren't working and the offense was dysfunctional, almost a good version of the Tebow offense there for a bit, just broken plays. But yeah, I don't blame Sutton one bit. I tend to be much more pro player, and I think maybe I'm just a little bit of a devil's advocate, Scott, because a lot of times the fans will be like, oh, this guy, and I'll try to take the other side, and it's made me a much more non-fan perspective and just much more pro player. Get that money when you can, because they will discard you as soon as they possibly can.
You've heard me use a phrase, and Keith, to answer your question, I think it would be a big setback to not have Sutton on this team for Bo Nix, because you're looking at a wide receiver room of Troy Franklin, Josh Reynolds, and Marvin Mims. That's not ideal. You want Sutton to be there, and trust me, he knows that, and so does his agent. This first got me, Nick, going way back on this because I'm old. Was Dan Reeves lost me, back in the day. He cuts 4 guys at Falcons training camp, and then he's talking about Jamal Anderson, who just set the league record for touches with like 480 touches because you ran him into the ground after the 98 season, and he holds out. He's got a contract. He should be here. Dude, you just cut 10 guys with contracts. I like I've said before, I don't mind an a-hole. You know where you stand. I can't stand hypocrisy, and the hypocrisy of these guys and their contracts on their non-guaranteed and this holier than thou BS that the press then backs them on. Well, Jamal Anderson's got 2 years left on his contract and he's not here. Man, they don't owe him a penny. It's basically a week-to-week deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's no good in this game. It's too damn dangerous. You're better off being in college where your NIL deal's guaranteed. So They've changed that a lot through the years. The rookie contracts are guaranteed. They didn't used to be. And then there's just a lot more guaranteed money in these deals, but they front load them so that you have a shorter deal and you have flexibility. Courtland Sutton's contract is out of his guaranteed money, and that makes him nervous. I understand.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there, and I agree it would be a big loss to have him. I don't know how exactly he will fit with Bo Nix, and he's been in trade rumors now 3 different times. Last year in the offseason, this year leading up to the trade deadline, and this offseason. So obviously Denver's listening to options moving on from Sutton, but he's still here, and he's far and away their most valuable and most known quantity as far as an offensive weapon. I mean, he might be your most valuable offensive, but probably Garrett Bowles is your most valuable offensive player right now, but it's kind of just shows where your offense is at. I mean, Quinn Minor's up there too, even though he plays guard, young player. He's going to get a big contract, but kind of shows where you're at on, to your point earlier, Scott, about where the offense sits and being nervous about it. I mean, there was a tweet the other day, list your top 5 players on your team, and I had a hard time actually doing that for the Broncos after Surtain and Miners. It's like, I mean,
there's a good one. Zach Allen immediately came to mind.
Allen, yeah.
I'd say Courtland Sutton
and Bowles. Is it Sutton and?
I kind of went Baron Browning, maybe.
He's not out there enough.
But Bowles, it's not a. You said it last night on Building the Broncos that the lack of top 100 draft picks is really showing up right now.
Mm-hmm.
But McGlinchey's getting paid like one, and that's kind of the problem when you start talking about who is earning who's earning their money right now. Russell Wilson, 53 dead. Well, no, that's bad. Garrett Bowles is a $20 million cap hit. That feels about right.
That's probably about right.
Yeah. Courtland Sutton at 17 for what he does, the 23rd highest paid wide receiver. Yeah, that's fair market value. DJ Jones at 13. No.
Not last year.
Yeah, probably not. Zach Allen just redid his cap at 7.7. That's good. Mike McGlinchey just redid his cap at 7.7. Alex Singleton at 7.3. That's a lot of money for Alex Singleton. But now you're down to this. See, this was a discussion last night too that I wanted to get in on when you were talking about $60 million of dead cap money. And you're like, oh, that's probably 5 starters. That's probably, I was like, 5? Guys, you only have 4 players making over $7 million. $7 million into 60 goes about 9 times. That's 63. 9 times. That's 9 players. That's an entire defense of dead cap money.
And
you've only got 4 guys with a higher than a $7 million cap hit.
4. To be fair, the reason that happens is because Denver dead capped
backloads it. I know.
And they redid the contracts of every single top guy they signed last year. So that changed.
You can do that with free agent signings too. So going back to next year, when we start building this team with that Russell Wilson money, I can get, again, how many? 8? I can get 8 starters that would be the 10 highest paid players on my team.
Yep. Really, I mean, it's pretty easy to see this is a 3-year plan right now. This year is you're pushing guys out of the nest this season and seeing who can survive and who you need to move on and replace. This is a tough year, and it's going to be more about the process than the results. After that, this season, you're going to have a big evaluation on a lot of guys. You're going to have money to spend. You still have big dead cap hit next year, but you mentioned it, how you can set up the contracts. It's pretty hard to do that 2 years into the future. But if you have 1 year of dead cap, not a lot of space, but then a huge amount of space, easy to set up the contracts where you can get by short, low cap hits and backload those to a sense where they explode more year 2, year 3, year 4. Not always maybe the best business because you lose some flexibility there, but it's possible. And then 2026, all bets are off. That's a do or die, put up or shut up season, dependent on Bo Nix being the guy. I mean, if you get through 2 seasons and he's obviously not the guy, the 3-year plan is kind of off.
You're going to be doing a lot of
guy at quarterback.
You're probably looking for a new coach too.
At that point,
probably.
So
you have a 3-year plan now with Sean Payton and Bo Nix.
Yep.
Let's see where it goes. But Jamie, and part of this is going to help here. Jamie says, when does the Russell situation end? And Jeremy answered in there, but it's a big, they took the big cap hit this year. They're at $55 million. And then I think it's 30 next season, but Russell Wilson was due like a $57 million cap hit. So you're saving almost $30 million by not having Russell Wilson next year. So you get that back that you would have spent. And then he's off the books in 2026. But next year you get like $30 million back that would have gone to Russell Wilson. If he was playing well, you probably would have restructured him though. But this is 1 year. 1 year of cap hell. It's just this year.
Yeah, but I mean, again, Scott, maybe that'll be a topic for another day. Your top 5 players on this team, it's hard right now, and that's obviously
self-imposed. I know, and to tie yourself to another year of Mike McGlinchey, you've got to get a return on him because you could have gotten out of his deal next year. Now you really can't.
No,
and if he doesn't play any better in 2024 than he did in 2023, that's an albatross.
Yeah. Yep. And speaking of an albatross, Michael Ronquillo coming in always. I don't know if that's always a negative connotation, but big time. Saying good morning, Nik and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Great to see Michael. Big stars always. The sunrise, sunset, all day, all night. We appreciate you, Michael. Keith says, how big of a setbacks for Bo Nix?
Yeah, we hit that one.
We got that one? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we got both because Michael mentioned his stars as well. So appreciate you, Michael. Facebook stars for Michael. We appreciate you, Michael. Big news, I guess. We'll get into it here the final 10 minutes or so. But Broncos, I edited all the captions, titles besides the YouTube one, Scott, but second to last rookie signing. But Broncos do sign a contract to Jonah Ellis, their 3rd round pick, the 75 overall player. Add another player to the edge rush room, one of the most productive pass rushers in all of college football last season, NFL bloodlines, and somebody Denver seems pretty excited to bring in. Now, you've heard me say on here many times, Scott, that edge rusher a lot of times is a 1st round pick if you're looking for difference makers. Now, I know the Falcons fans on Monday were coming at me. Well, what about Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson?
We can play the what about game all day if you want to.
I mean, I always say on here not to get too math nerdy, but your numerator is only as good as your denominator. If it's 3 out of 300, not great. Not great. But you can always find outliers. That said, Jonah Ellis, I don't expect him to come in and be a superstar, but he can be a useful player. And what he does for me is he keeps talented pass rush options in the room when you are going to lose young, cost-controlled talent there very soon. Maybe even as soon as this, before the season even starts. You got Baron Browning and you have Jonathan Cooper on their last year of their deals. Browning hasn't been able to stay healthy, and you just can never have enough quality pass rushers. So Jonah Ellis does not have to be, even to me, Scott, doesn't even have to be a high-end starter. If he can be a number 3 for, what was it, the 75th pick, that's a fine return on investment if he's a good pass rusher. So I do have questions about how he fits in a room that really lacks edge setters right now. Like you have Benito, Browning, Cooper, and Ellis. None of these guys are great run defenders, and that's something that Denver was not great at the edge spot last season. But again, 75th overall pick. He makes the room better from bottom up depth position. And also, the big thing I'm watching here with him is, does he play well enough and competent enough out of the gate that he makes a Cooper or a Browning expendable to create more snaps for one of those other guys and save a little money and get a day 3 pick in return?
You're talking about a trade, or even, I just don't know if the Denver Broncos are ever going to be playing in the comp game, just because not with Sean Payton there, because they'll be spending money.
Mm-hmm. Not even doing it this year.
My question for you is, if you get Jonathan Cooper out of Jonah Ellis, is that considered a hit?
No.
You don't think Jonathan Cooper was worth a 3rd round pick in his play? Because I think he has been.
A soft hit, I guess. I think that's adequate. That's not surplus value. That is just okay.
We have 8 sacks last year and played a decent edge.
I think he was okay there. I think a lot of the sacks were, again, Scott, I think how many sacks came from winning your matchups, quality sacks, versus the one-on-ones because you came, I think Denver, after week 5, was the 2nd highest first and second down blitz team in the NFL. They were putrid on 3rd down, and they could not get after the quarterback with only sending 4, and that frees guys up. So the quality of the sacks from Cooper, from all these guys, I just, going back and reviewing them, I didn't see them.
You got to remember, I watched a starting edge get 600 snaps and only hit the quarterback twice all season. Third round pick for Jonathan Cooper sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. You hope for more, though. Edge is one of those spots.
But again, 3rd round. So if I got 8 sacks from Jonah Ellis and he's playing a decent edge rusher, I'm pretty happy with that, man.
I'm more interested in the pressure rate and how much he's impacting on a per snap basis. Yeah. I mean, we talked our first year, Scott, we talked about Malik Reed, and you look at the numbers on the stat sheet. It's like, this guy got a lot of sacks. I'm like, nah, it's I know the tape does not say that. He's not that guy. And then they get a 6 round.
Plays better than Reed. He plays a better edge than Reed.
He does. Mm-hmm. He does. I agree with that. I'm still hoping for more pass rush impact per down without having to blitz from him. Somebody who can win one-on-ones at a better rate and be a little bit more impactful. But that's, I guess that's a soft hit, but it would be one where it's just kind of a shoulder shrug level of hit, if that makes sense. It's like, yeah, fine. That's fine. I want a little more.
Coach Chris coming in again. Love it, Chris. Thank you, sir. He says, couple questions. Is training camp open to the public this year? I don't know. Nick might, because there's no chance of this guy in Atlanta making training camp. So I haven't looked into it. And I haven't seen any of the guys see if Luke's gone or anything. I would imagine some of it is. But he says, I know we picked up the 5th-year option on Patrick Surtain. When do we negotiate a new contract? I would think those are ongoing and has been ongoing and will be ongoing until it gets done. And this is kind of a double-edged question for me, Nick. Would you re-sign Bowles to an extension or allow him to test the market? My thought on this one, Coach Chris, is if they were going to re-sign him, at least on the terms that were offered, it would have already been done. Mm-hmm. So I think Garrett Bowles, and maybe a mutual decision of, all right, if I'm going to stay, you're going to pay me well over market price. I want $30 million. Well, we're not going to pay that. Well, I'm going to be a free agent. I think there's a little 2 to tango on this one, because if there was mutual agreement on a contract, it would be happening soon because you wouldn't lower his cap number now. You don't have to, but you could do that right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. From what I heard, Denver had approached Bulls with a contract and he was rebuffing them. And that made it possible they were going to trade him. But then things changed as far as the quarterback market for Denver not using a first round pick at tackle instead of edge. And that led to more likely keeping Bulls around, not going in, with Cam Fleming and Mike McGlinchey as your tackles or Palshetsky or whatever. So I think that if they were really prioritizing and keeping Bulls, he probably would have already signed a new contract here to lower the cap hit this season. And you don't really let a guy that you want at a value position get to the last year of a contract, especially for what the tackle market does. And next year's tackle class in the draft is not going to be like it was this last year. So you might even see a bump up there in terms of the free agent expenditure per dollar on the tackle market. But we'll see. I mean, he's got another year of play. You're tied to Mike McGlinchey. Maybe you want to use your resources elsewhere. One in the hand's better than two in the bush when you find quality tackles, and tackles tend to age rather gracefully, Scott. I mean, a lot of times.
Don't you have to draft a tackle eventually though to like put them in the pipeline, or you just what do you do? It's strange.
Yeah.
The Denver Broncos, it's mind-boggling to me that they haven't drafted a tackle since Garrett Bowles. Just absolutely mind-boggling.
It is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. And I saw the question about training camp, Scott. I know that they let people in last year. I would imagine they do it again. It's a chance for marketing and advertisers, Scott. I think last year Denver teamed up with God, they won't get mad at me if I say it wrong. I believe it was Ford. And if you brought your Ford key fob, you can get it, in for free or cheaper tickets or get a special Ford lanyard. I mean, you saw that I don't know if you saw, Scott, but they teamed up with Ford for the Bronco car and the jersey release. It almost felt like a car commercial when they were releasing the jerseys. So
one of the benefits in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they've got a Mercedes-Benz parking lot. You get free parking right next to the stadium.
Hey,
if you are driving a Benz there and you have to reserve it, they go quick.
Yeah.
But Kathy Schmidt says, thanks for the answer. Talking about Ellis, I still wonder why we didn't pick Brandon Dorless. Dorless was a 4th round pick of the Atlanta Falcons, and he played primarily inside at the Senior Bowl, and he got his ass whooped most of the time inside. Now they've talked about him being afterwards going inside outside. I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. We like the versatility. And again, Nick and I have talked about this a lot. Having some of those 280-pound guys play more of a 4-man front for Atlanta. But Dorless, I was not a fan when he was playing inside because he just didn't have the weight in the seat to do it. So I thought Dorless was a reach at defensive tackle with the 4th round pick. So how they use him, he might be somebody completely different if you move him outside a little bit farther. But I wasn't a huge fan of Brandon Dorless. And if you watched enough of our pods, his name came up. I'm like, I passed on him a lot.
Yeah, tweener sometimes is a dirty word, especially in the defensive line. If you're not plus in some areas, not everybody can be Calais Campbell. A lot of times you see guys who are more DeMarcus Walker-esque, like, where's your home? He has one good season out there where he's almost purely an interior guy. And there's some scheme stuff out there, like what the Titans did with Vrabel, where they almost played like 4 defensive tackle body types up there in pocket crunchers. He can work in that role, I think. But with where the NFL is at right now, Dorless might be a purely 3rd down sub package 4-eye 3 technique, where you're like, you're not seeing the run no matter what, buddy. Like, we don't want that for you at all. But we'll see. I don't know. I have a hard time with Pac-12 pass rushers sometimes because the quality of the offensive lines outside of Oregon and Washington the past couple seasons, I guess Oregon State too. They did a really good job. Well, I'm curious to see what the Oregon State's head coach does at Michigan State this year. They paid him good money to go out to East Lansing. But that's not really high quality offensive line out there on the West Coast. And that's one reason that USC has been pretty scary. And we'll see what happens with Lincoln Riley out in LA. Troy comes in, says, if we trade Sutton, who could we sign with additional cap space? Not advocating, wondering. The guys that you'd sign with additional cap space are probably guys already on your roster. It's probably in my opinion, you're probably allocating that to a Surtain contract. Maybe that's when you sign Bulls. There's nobody. Justin Simmons is still out there. I don't think he's coming back, but like the money that you save is not going to be worth anybody that's still available.
Again, I think I always forget about this, so I'm gonna have to remind Nick, you roll it over. You're signing guys next year with that money because it's about a $14-15 million savings if someone were to pick up all of his money. Now, remember, you're probably taking on someone else too, so you got to pay a replacement to a certain extent. But what it would be worth? It comes into the okay, we can trade Sutton, but you're going to have to take all of his salary, so we get the salary cap relief. Well, we don't want to pay all of his salary. Well, then we'll keep him. You know, it's do you leverage money and a draft pick? What is it worth? And again, going back to the Sutton discussion, because I still see it going on about I don't think he's worth more money. I still don't think it's about more money. I just think it's about the fact that if his season ends tomorrow, they could cut him and they don't owe him any more money. He's looking for some guarantees. Commit to me. So that's what I think he's looking for. But Troy, I would think if you move on from him, you're talking about carrying that cap space over till next year because you're not really, if you need $3 million here or there, you can always find it somehow, some way. With $15 million, you want to go shopping next year with that money.
Yeah.
And Randy says, thank you for helping produce that. Team camp practices are open to public. Fans can secure free tickets for all practices. So check out denverbroncos.com and look for securing free tickets. There's your marketing. They want your email address.
And crazy news here, I guess. NFL is going to be streamed on Netflix this year.
Yeah, they've got, I think the Christmas Day games is going to be on Netflix this year.
Yeah, Christmas Day games 2024, and we're getting Steelers Chiefs game exclusively on Netflix. So
a couple blue bloods, a couple AFL blue bloods there.
Yeah, it's crazy times, man. Can you imagine if all these big streaming service like bundle into like maybe like a cable service or something? No,
Nick, we've been doing this long enough that you've heard me say, watch out when the tech people who start their valuation with a T start getting serious about this, because the CBSs of the world aren't competing with Google. They're not competing with Apple. And Apple dipped their toes in this a little bit with MLS, which is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the interest that the NFL is. And when you've got trillion-dollar companies that start getting interested in this, look out. Look out CBS. Look out Fox. Look out NBC.
I mean, already seeing it with Amazon, right? But seeing all these things, maybe there'll be cable subscription. Crazy. Just things just come back to how they are. That's we'll see. Michael Ronquillo closing us out. It is time for us to get out of here. Says, great show today, Nik and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Appreciate you. Go Broncos. Yeah. We didn't even get to the other news. Broncos bringing in Dorsett and Newsome. Dorsett to me is just a practice body, Scott. You brought in Troy Franklin. You have Marvin Mims. Dorsett's kind of a similar outside stretch player. I can't imagine him making the roster other than maybe, we have those, how many times you can call up guys. That's kind of what Dorsett was last year. He might end up that if you have an injury on the outside. And Newsome, camp body, cornerback. If he does something in preseason, we'll watch on him, but I can't imagine anything more than somebody out there getting reps and helping you fill out the 90-man as you work your way down to 53.
Yeah, David Sills. He of the 7th grade. I didn't realize he was on the Denver Broncos depth chart now. He of the 7th grade USC commitment to Lane Kiffin. Ended up being a damn good athlete at West Virginia and has made a living in the NFL as a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He's on the roster too. So yeah, there's a lot of competition, but not necessarily a lot of difference makers out there. And again, you pair that with a rookie quarterback, you kind of need Sutton and Dulcich's gimpy hamstrings. You kind of need Courtland Sutton out there, y'all. And I'm not going to lambast him for holding out on a contract that isn't guaranteed right now in May.
Yeah, we will we'll see what happens with all those guys. But appreciate everyone. We're going to get on out of here. Shout out to Coach coming in twice, the Boogmeister, GGG, Keith Brugman, Troy Boer, and Michael Ronquillo a couple times as well. You guys are killing it. We appreciate you. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nik Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. As the ticker says there underneath, please subscribe to our channel over on YouTube, like and share on social media. And we appreciate everyone coming in, hanging out with us. We'll see you again next Monday. Scott, any final words before we close up shop?
Nope. It's been a great week, and looking forward to, again, I've loved the draft. I love the draft process. The couple of weeks after the draft, the hemming and hawing, the fandom is, I'm ready to move on. Let's move on. And we got guys on the football fields. It's time to start talking cap, starting to talk about depth charts, impacts, all this stuff. So looking forward to spending the summer with y'all.
Yeah. Have a great week, guys. Continue to choose kindness, compassion, and as always, go Broncos.